Brad, let me start with you. He sort of built up to this as the big news, and I think this is big news. I mean, $150 million is a big spend. You know, nearly 3,000 acres of solar. That's a big project.
Sure, and it calls back to something he said at the Apple shareholder meeting last year. If you remember, he was questioned about the ROI of its alternative energy projects, and he sort of reacted quite forcibly and said, if you just care about ROI, get out of the stock. So, you know, Cook, he's got a great kind of feel for the value of Apple, the values of Apple customers. Alternative energy projects is consistent with those values. It makes a statement about kind of where Apple's heart is.
Michelle, let me ask you, you know solar as well as anyone. How big a deal is this big project?
The magnitude of this deal is very, very big, Corey. There are solar projects that are bigger than this one, but this is you know, really gargantuan in terms of the size of the solar project. But what's really notable when you think about size is who the off-taker is. So there are bigger solar projects, but nothing that's been signed with someone who's not a utility. So usually it's signed with an electricity company. And we have seen corporations sign renewable energy deals to take some of their electricity, but never in solar, never something of this magnitude, and obviously nothing with the brand name at the level of Apple. Bear in mind also that Apple has made investments in solar before. They have 4 solar projects that are either already operating or in development, but this triples their capacity, triples their intake of solar energy.
And to be specific, they're supplying the power back to the grid, and so when Tim Cook said, I would imagine, right, so when Tim Cook says it will power their data center and offices and stores, it's not actually going to go directly to them. It's just going to go back into the grid, and the power that they pull off the grid will be equivalent?
That's right. So there's no doubt that behind the scenes there must have been some complexity involved in putting together this deal, a lot of negotiations back and forth. But at the end of the day, this is actually surprisingly painless for Apple. There's no upfront investment they're putting in. They're most likely getting power at a price lower than they would have paid off the grid. And at the end of the day, the electricity does go back into the grid. And actually, maybe the kind of the unsung middleman in all of this is the company Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E, which is the utility in the service territory. And this doesn't really happen without PG&E's help and involvement.
I can only imagine those discussions. Brad, where does this fit into the espousal of corporate values that was part of Tim Cook's talk yesterday?
Well, I do think it's part of a larger framework. You know, the other topic that he spent some time on was Apple Pay, and of course, you know, the whole presentation was somewhat scripted, and of course, he's talking about how Apple Pay has taken off and how banks and retailers have really coalesced around it. But he made a point to say that Apple's not collecting any personal data, no financial data with Apple Pay, no healthcare data with some of its healthcare initiatives, and I think, you know, the implicit comparison here is to other technology companies whose business models are different. Apple is aligning itself, you know, on the side of its customers. So not only, you know, customers that care about data privacy, but also conscientious customers who care about things like the environment. That's where Tim Cook wants to be. I think he's had a lot of success since he took over as CEO and sort of painting himself as an advocate for Apple customers.
Yeah, and Brad, he said a couple times during the talk yesterday that I thought it was striking. He said, you know, at Apple, we believe we should leave the world a better place than we found it. And he said that a couple times, and I wondered if that was more Tim Cook and less Steve Jobs.
Perhaps, and, you know, frankly, I'll admit to a little eye rolling when I hear things like that. But
I'm the cynic on this show.
Like maybe he lost.
Wait a minute, I'm the cynic on this show. No, I know. I don't know. I'm a sucker for that, though.
Yeah, I feel like he lost his interviewer there, Gary Cohn, the COO of Goldman Sachs, who was flashing a little impatience as well. But, you know, Tim Cook, you know, stays on message. That has been his message for quite some time. And, you know, I think the customers believe it. And certainly investors love it, as you can see by the share price. And Apple passed that $700 billion threshold in market cap yesterday, which was quite impressive.
Michael DeCapua, you know, back to the solar issue. And I wonder, in terms of leadership, what this means. You know, Apple's a company like no other. It has a bigger enterprise value, a bigger market cap than any company's ever had. Might we expect other companies, however, outside of the power generation business to get into this business of power generation, particularly when there are big federal subsidies?
Corey, it's already been happening. This is a trend that's been a while in the making. Google has been really at the forefront of it. The other tech companies, Microsoft, Yahoo, even Amazon earlier this year, have all been doing some of these very large renewable energy deals. But it's true. I mean, you know, when you have someone of Apple's stature coming in, it alerts other companies to the possibilities. And again, it's not just the possibilities around whatever it is, improving their footprint, around sustainability, around addressing climate change. It really is an economic opportunity, and there's a really extraordinary opportunity around solar, given the incentives that are in place today, that exist that exist at this level, at least for the next 2 years.